Back for another edition of In the Huddle. Carl Dukes, put him up, along with Jason Canfora, and of course, Brian Baldinger is here. Guys, we invite you to follow us and check out this podcast. It is all about the NFL. It is all about ball, and we don't want you to miss an episode. Today, we're going to talk about the AFC, NFC championship games. Obviously, there are coaching hires going on around the National Football League, so we'll talk about what we know. We won't speculate because, again, some of this stuff will change. Jason and I said this on Tuesday. Yeah. We didn't want to get into a lot of this stuff because we're not sure where it's going to go. For example, who the hell are the Cowboys going to hire? We don't know. So that's why we will be reluctant to go.
Is Barry Switzer still available?
Yeah.
I mean,
probably.
Exactly. So, fellas, we do know the Jets hired Aaron Glenn. And before we get into the matchups this weekend to see who's going to go to the Super Bowl, let's talk about this hire. Dan Campbell said he was going to lose both of his coordinators, or at least he assumed he would. So he's lost Ben. He goes to the Bears. Now he's lost Aaron Glenn. That news came down yesterday. I just want to know what you guys think about this hire. We know Aaron Glenn has been a candidate the last couple of seasons. But going to the Jets, I saw something yesterday, Baldy, where Parcells was like, kind of endorsing his attitude and the way he approaches things. Jason, I don't know. Listen, we all think the Jets have fundamental issues internally that they've got to fix. But what can Aaron Glenn do there now that he takes over?
Go ahead, Baldy.
Oh, well, I mean, look, it's already a little screwy. Like, I'm an Aaron Glenn fan. But who's the general manager? Who's the quarterback? I mean, every coach kind of starts with those things. Who's picking the groceries? Who's keeping us on? Who's our Jayden Daniels? Are they going to – I mean, they're going to lose money whether they sign Aaron Rodgers or they cut Aaron Rodgers. They're going to lose a lot of money. So, I mean, do you want to start your coaching career with a 41-year-old Aaron Rodgers? Like, those are decisions that are probably beyond Aaron Glenn's hands at this point because they don't know who they never put the cart in front of the horse. I feel like so, but look, Aaron Glenn, who's the good, the coaching staff is going to be important because the Jets, these young players that they drafted that we all bragged about, whether it was Breece Hall or Sauce Gardner, they've all regressed. So who's coaching these guys? Is there going to be player development? Or is it just going to be another Woody Johnson hire and 2 years later Aaron Glenn's out the door and he never got a chance to do what Dan Campbell did in Detroit? Because Dan Campbell didn't get the staff exactly right away. So he made a lot of changes to get the Ben Johnson, Aaron Glenn. And they were patient with that. Will the Jets be patient, Carl, to allow him? Because they might not get it right away. There might be an Aaron Rodgers, bridge to get to the quarterback. Like, I just hope – this is what I hope. I'm an Aaron Glenn fan. It's kind of hard not to be. He's paid his dues. Like, he knows he can coach. It's not a great – there's little glitches on this resume at the end of last year, NFC Championship game, give up 5 straight scores to the 49ers. Give up 45 on Saturday to Washington. There's a little bit there where you go, man, okay. But you got to look at the body of work. I just hope the Jets will be patient, get the general manager thing right, and get the quarterback thing right to at least give them a chance. Jason?
I can't give the Jets the benefit of the doubt in any way, shape, or form, and it has nothing to do with Aaron Glenn. It's about the overall leadership of the franchise. It's about infrastructure. It's about putting people in positions to succeed. I got to be honest. This hire reminds me a lot of Todd Bowles.
Mm.
Did he get proper infrastructure? Was Mike Tannenbaum stabbing it? Like the backstabbing, all the bullshit. Like, I mean, Todd Bowles, hell of a football player, paid all his dues at various levels.
Got the endorsement from Bill Parcells.
Yes, studied under great defensive minds, was more than ready. He's dealing with the residue of the Rex Tannenbaum fallout. Like, did he really get a shot there? Who was playing quarterback for him? How did that turn out? I mean, certain franchises to me are in the also ran, I'll give them the benefit of the doubt when they earn it. But as long as those owners are making the decisions, they're probably going to F it up. And that's where the Jets are for me. And that's not about Aaron Glenn whatsoever. You know, like, how many quarterbacks get ruined because they go to the wrong coach at the wrong time with the wrong owner with the is it the player's fault?
To kind of piggyback, Jason, I saw Todd Bowles this summer, spent some time with him, and I mean, look, he's won the division 4 years in a row. He's had to find new coordinators. He's found 3 new coordinators. You know, one might become a head coach here before this is all out again. But, you know, I said, Todd, for the first time in your whole life, you've got coaching stability. Now, he won the division 4 years in a row. Like, he's got coaching stability. He can coach, but he's got a general manager that believes in him. He's got ownership. They stays the hell out of the way. And here he is now looking to win that division.
Well, and Baldy, smooth transition. BA building it up to hand to Todd Bowles, knowing I'm at the end of my career. I want to hit golf balls and drink bourbon. I'm not killing myself like this.
No, but that's to your point, Jason. To your point, that's infrastructure.
Yes,
you've got infrastructure.
That's a succession plan. That's cohesion, right? That's not this where they finally convince Aaron Glenn to take it, but they still haven't sorted out the personnel side, and you've got the quarterback still going on Pat McAfee show, spewing whatever he wants to spew. Like, why wouldn't you cut the cord from that guy before you start this process and just say, hey, if you were a real owner, Woody, hey, man, I made a mistake. I'm going to pay this guy to go away, but we got to restart here. Like, we're not winning anything with Aaron Rodgers. We're not close to competing in our pathetic division, let alone banging Lamar and Mahomes upside the head and say, we're coming for you, right? But they haven't done that because they're an unserious organization, because the owner has proven to be utterly unfit to lead anybody anywhere.
Guys, what confidence do you have? The Lions have great personnel. We know this. They're young. They're going to get Hutchinson back. The running backs, Gibbs. I mean, like, you start looking, they got the personnel. How much confidence do you have that Dan Campbell's going to be able to find the right replacements? Because if he doesn't, that could stunt this run that they're on and this window that they're in if he's not able to do that. I heard him say in his presser where, he wants to maybe stay in-house, but stay where they're at least with the philosophy and the things that they're doing. Baldy and Jason, though, we know how hard that is, man. You bring in somebody else.
Listen, Carl, you're spot on. Carl, listen, I've said this since I was a Cowboy, and I saw Tom Landry lose Gene Stallings, and, he loses – all kinds of good coaches when he was there, and he was not able to replace them. I've always said, and they lose Mike Ditka, they lose great coaches. I always said it's harder to replace great coaches than great players. Players come and go. Players get hurt. Players come and go. Great coaches. Dan Campbell was fortunate last year to keep both his coordinators. They only came back and won 15 games. It's hard, and it's hard to replace the talents of those two guys. Because, like we said from the very beginning of this podcast today, it took him a while to find those guys, to really locate, okay, he made changes in order to get to that point. It's like, I think they're attractive jobs for sure. If you're a rising assistant coach or wanting to be a rising coordinator, it's attractive. But Dan's got to get that right, because they could have injuries to the different positions next year like they had this year. You got to be able to overcompensate with great coaching. And so it's going to be a challenge for them right now. And they might lose Hank Fraley to Seattle before this is all over. Like, he's interviewing up there for the offense coordinator job. He's not only that, but he's the line coach. Right. He's the one and they played with a backup left guard, backup right guard. They played with backup players this year. Hank Fraley, and you listen to Frank Ragnow and some of those guys talk about Hank. They literally, it's a brotherhood within that offense line, and Hank's a big part of that.
All right, before we get to the games this weekend, because that's what it's all about, AFC, NFC championship games, I do want to ask about Ben Johnson. He had his presser. We always critique these pressers, right? We say, oh, did he say the right things? He said in his presser, Jason, he enjoyed beating Matt LaFleur a couple of times a year. And I thought the response might be, whoa, Bears in the building. Everybody's like, hell yeah. And he was talking about being in that division and being familiar with it. Did he cross the line? Did he go too far? Or is he just coming in with confidence saying, hey, I like beating this guy's ass, twice a season, and I look forward to doing it again. Do you think that's the exuding confidence that he needs as he gets this job? He's not won a game as a head coach.
Part of the reason this is seen as a coup for the Chicago Bears is that they not only hurt the Detroit Lions, right, in the division, the bully on the block, but they hurt them and they added somebody who has been very successful scoring points in the division. So why would that not be a calling card for him? Like, why I don't know. I think
Lovie Smith said basically the same thing when he got hired in Chicago. Like Green Bay everybody was chasing Brett Favre and Holmgren and all those guys up there in Green Bay for a while. And, that's always been the team to beat if you're in Chicago. You got to beat Green Bay. I mean, they're neighbors, their division. That nobody has more Hall of Fame players than the Bears and the Packers. Like they just have 100 year of history between these two teams.
All right, guys, let's talk about the NFC Championship game. 3:00 Sunday. It's the early game. We only get 2. We know we're down to the final 4. And as I look at this game, Philly's a 6.5-point favorite. They are, what's the over-under? 47.5. Eagles are 8-1 at home. Does this simply come down to, and we'll get into the particulars, because Saquon Barkley has run for over 145 yards twice on the Commanders this season. And knowing that, and they had no answers for him, knowing that they are one of the worst run-stop teams in the league, do the Eagles simply go into this game, Baldy, and go, we're just going to give it to Saquon. He got it 26 times last week. He had 200 yards on the ground against the Rams. Can they simply do that and not have to worry about this stuff with Jalen Hurts?
Well, the health of Jalen Hurts is going to affect this offense, period. His first touchdown run last week, 44 yards in the opening drive. I mean, it's a ball fake to Saquon Barkley. The safety, the corner, the linebacker, they all go with Saquon. It opened up everybody. The safety it was a good audible by Jalen. The safety Cam Curl's on the other side of the field. They ran away from it. It was a good call. The health of Jalen's going to affect it. But let me break what you said down about Saquon against the Rams in these 2 games, because I went deeper into it. 26 runs produced 123 yards against the Commanders. 43 runs against the Commanders produced 87 yards. 12 runs produced 224 yards. So he gets the big runs because you keep feeding him. But there's a whole lot of 2 and 3 yard runs in between before he gets that one. And the same thing happened last week. He gets the 68-yarder at the end of the first quarter and doesn't do much until that 78-yarder at the end of the fourth quarter. So will they be patient enough, or will the score stay close enough for them to keep feeding Saquon? Because it's easy just to look at the final numbers and go, okay, 55 runs, 296 yards, 4 touchdowns. It's easy just to look at that because that's what we all do. But if you go closer, you realize they sold out to stop the run a bunch and they were successful at it. And then it's a question of, if they do that, is Jalen good enough throwing it right now to a banged up A.J. Brown, to, what Sam Ristel just did in his role last week, and Marshawn healthier than he was at any point this year at the other corner? Are they good enough to make these throws if they stuff the run a number of times in a row?
Jason, Jalen ran that 40-yard touchdown last week, and I know I want you to chime in on the Barkley stuff, but he didn't look that banged up to me. Now, we know he is, but is that going to affect this RPO with Saquon Barkley and his production running the ball? We're talking about Jalen Hurts too.
Well, if I'm the Washington Commanders, I'm going to force him to show me how healthy he is. And I'm not convinced he's healthy. I mean, he's limited in a walkthrough. What the hell is that?
Yeah.
I mean, how you limited in a walkthrough? I mean, and he got worse as that game went on, and he was in pain. And even the way they're talking about this situation leads me to believe it's at least somewhat significant. And Baldy, like to your point, you can get away with that stuff when it's snowy, when the other team's having trouble possessing the ball, right? When the Rams are sort of undone by the elements and an untimely turnover here or there. If it's the weather forecast I'm looking like, and Jayden Daniels is getting explosives against your defense, that to me has slipped a little bit from its impervious perch that it was on maybe a month ago. Like, that's the question, isn't it? Like, how much can you stick with that approach if this other team is getting explosives while you keep running for 2 yards in a cloud of dust?
So, well, there is a matchup in this game that, I'm curious. They haven't named who the right guard's going to be replacing Samuel Cosmi.
Yeah.
Trent Scott went in there last week, played 47 plays. He was okay. He's not a great athlete, but he's a backup player for a reason. Dan Quinn came out yesterday and said, we're going to play our best 5 guys. Now, that might be subterfuge. That might be gamesmanship. It might be Trent Scott. But that means he's playing against Jalen Carter every play. And Jalen Carter won the game for the Eagles last week. Whether it was the sack at the end on 3rd and 4, where the Rams were ready to go win the game, or whether it's punching out of Kyron Williams' hands after they get the safety and are driving down 16-50. He won the game for him. Like, he's a game changer, and now you're going up against your backup. You might not, that might be a tough matchup for Washington right now.
No, I totally agree. And Jason, to your point, this Philadelphia secondary gave up 324 yards to Matt Stafford, 2 touchdowns, no picks last week. Nobody's hotter right now than Jayden Daniels. And he ate them up for 5 touchdowns the last time he saw these guys. And he also ran for 81 yards. So let's talk about this Jayden Daniels component here. Because if what Baldy's saying, the closest of the game and you're still effectively able to run the ball if you're the Eagles. But what if the Commanders get out? What if they're leading this game?
Like last week.
Now Jalen has to do some things, and you're trying to match Jayden Daniels and his playmaking. That is something I think is concerning. And remember, the Commanders guys, the last time they played, were down 14 points. Now, we know, Jalen got knocked out, concussed, but they came back from 14. Guys, they're not fearing this matchup, right?
No, look, Jayden threw the game-winning touchdown pass to Jamison Crowder with 10 seconds to go in the game, and it was a dime. And it was the Eagles playing his own defense. He just zipped it right to him. It was a great read. He's not missing any reads right now. Aaron Glenn blitzed him repeatedly last week. He carved him up. And Cliff, you got to factor in Cliff this thing too. Cliff now also has 2 games against Vic Fangio this year. Identifying, they started blitzing at the end last week to heat Matt Stafford up because the 4-man rush wasn't doing anything to him. And so they started blitzing both linebackers. And if they start doing that and you let you're seeing Diami Brown play the best 2 games he's ever played in his life the last 2 weeks, to go with McLaurin, to go with Zach Ertz, like Jayden Daniels. And if you get quick pressure, Jayden Daniels has showed you that. He's faster than anybody you have when he's being chased. Nobody catches him. So, and he makes good decisions on the run. So, this is a tough matchup right now for Philadelphia. If they go down and by the way, in the Week 11 game, that game, the Eagles won 26-18. It was a 12-10 game in the 4th quarter when Jayden Daniels went for it on 4th and 2 and he got stuffed. They blew the protection up front. He got stuffed running for it, and that turned the whole game around. They could have kicked a field goal there to go up 13-12, and the game kind of got away from Saquon, took over, and ran for 2 touchdowns in the last 2 possessions. But they have played the Eagles very, very close. And that last game that they won 36-33, they turned it over 5 times and still put up 36 points.
But Baldy, do you think the Commanders mess around a whole lot with the run game, or do they almost concede? I know they got Robinson going last week against Detroit, but this is a different challenge here, right? And we're seeing an Eagles defense where Quinyon Mitchell's now banged up. If playoffs are different, playing a lot of rookies, this is a different season. No Nakobe Dean to help mitigate some things. Austin Eckler's looked really vibrant in the screen game for the Commanders. Like, how much do they bang their heads into a wall, or is this really about, to our earlier point, if they can throw themselves to a 10-0 lead, a 14-0 lead, now they've got to play the game at our speed?
Well, last week I thought, I sent Cliff a text during the week of one of the plays that it ran. I'm like, Cliff, I saw you run this play, Texas Tech at Baylor in 2015 with Mahomes. Like, it's still working. Like, they formationed Detroit to death. They double stack receivers outside the numbers. Who's out of the box? Let's get the numbers in our advantage. Like, to your point, though, Jason, I can certainly see them turn this into a passing game because the X factor is Jayden's scrambling ability. And from the first game of the year when Todd Bowles tried to light him up and he ran 16 times against Tampa, like, even when you blitz him and you get a free hitter, even when you get that, like, he avoids it and he sees it and his eyes are still down the field and makes good decisions. So I can certainly see this in some kind of a passing game right now where his decision-making and elusiveness might be enough to give the Eagles just fits right now.
That double stack stuff you're talking about, Baldy, that's all the great late Mike Leach.
Yeah,
he took a lot of stuff
Mike Leach.
From Mike.
And every single guy, Lincoln Riley, they all copied him in that Big 12. They all ran some version of that offense, and Cliff was on top of all of it.
Yeah, no doubt, and that is just creating mismatches. Hey, that's what it's about. All right,
real quick, Carl, real quick. The touchdown to Terry McLaurin, the 58-yarder hitch screen.
Yeah.
So your double stacks out here, and Brian Branch is out there, and you see Jayden Daniels holding the count, and here comes Brian Branch creeping, and then Jayden knew he had a numbers advantage out there, 2 blockers against the safety in the corner. And he threw it to McLaurin. He ran 58 yards. Like, he caught him in no man's land. And that's Mike Leach at his very best. And they all copied that. And they would give credit to Mike, bless his soul. So, yes, like Detroit, and not just that play, but a number of runs and plays, they really got the numbers advantage to their favor a number of times.
Jason, before I ask you about what you think about these numbers, -6.5, 47.5. I just want to bring this up. Guys, Jalen Hurts in the wild card game had 130 yards against Green Bay, throwing the ball. He comes back last week. He had 128 yards throwing the ball. Something doesn't seem right. And when you talk about A.J. Brown, 10 yards in the wild card game, 14 yards and 7 targets last week, they are not pushing the ball down the field. And I only bring that up to say that's why I'm a little concerned about this Eagles offense. And if you just say, hey, Saquon is going to run for 250, okay, maybe he does. But that is concerning to me. Does that concern you guys?
Concerns me.
Well, look, AJ drops the ball at the pylon. That's a go route, okay? It was a drop. He dropped one over the middle in the first quarter. It's 2 drops, weather, whatever, fine. He throws one at Devontae Smith in the middle of the field. It's an absolute dime. And Ahkello Witherspoon comes and takes his head off, and they flag it, and he drops the ball. But, those 2 shots. Here's the thing. If you take out that Week 16 game where Jalen gets concussed, he's 12-0 in 12 starts. Right. And he's thrown 1 interception with 16 touchdown passes. The interception that Jared got through to Tim Patrick, early in that game last week, that Quan Martin intercepts. He's not making that throw. He's not putting the ball in harm's way. So you can criticize him for the amount of yards that he's making. And you can criticize him for taking a safety or taking a sack here and there. But he's not turning the ball over. And they feel their defense, and I think this is more Jalen than the organization, Kellen Moore or Sirianni or anybody else. I think it's Jalen going, I'm not making that throw. Like the sideline throw to AJ that he drops, that's a safe throw. Either AJ's getting it or nobody's getting it. But he's not. If you go back to Week 1, he threw 2 interceptions against Green Bay and Brazil. Like, he's thrown a seam route against the Tampa 2, and it's the right throw to Devontae Smith, and Xavier McKinney picks it off. He's not making that throw in this game if they play that coverage with Wagner taking, Dallas Goedert down the middle of the field. He's not taking it. Now, you could say, and Jay, I'm going to let you jump in here. Like, I know you're chomping. But, he's not going to put the ball in harm's way right now. And it's worked for him. To win their 13th game, he might have to do that.
Because he doesn't have to throw for volume because of game script. because they've run it down people's throats for the most part, or they thought the levee's still going to break, and they haven't had to chase games. Even the game they lost to Washington came back on them because Fangio decided, I'm going to blitz the hell out of this kid and see what happens, even though it's not what I believe in and it's not what we do. And they got burned, right? And there's also the element of the backup quarterback. But, like, I can't think of that many instances where Hurts has had to chase a game or they've had to deviate from their norms.
No.
Right? Like, that's where my concern comes in. Like, what if he has to push it downfield more? And what if he's really feeling worse than he has since last year? You know, like that's sort of where I'm at. Like, that's what gives me pause. That's what has me backing the Commanders, frankly.
All right. Tell me what you think about these numbers, Jason. -6.5. You like it? You like the 47.5 under, over? Where you at?
This is how I've played the game. I've sprinkled Washington on the money line. I was hoping this thing would get to 7. I don't think it's going to get to 7, so I played it at 6.5 last night, which would be Wednesday night. I'm waiting to see if this number goes down. I'm tempted to go over. I don't love it as much as some other things. Jalen Hurts is 8-12 against the spread his last 20 games as a favorite. He's 9-15-3 against the spread in his career as a favorite of 6 or more points. The last 14 times he's been a favorite of 6 or more points, he's 2-10-2 against the spread. Jayden Daniels is 5-1-1 his last 7 games as an underdog. I know that Jalen Hurts is 4-0 at home in the playoffs, and I know that rookie quarterbacks in championship games, AFC or NFC, are 0-4 straight up and against the spread since 2000. But I think this kid's different. And I think Washington's fourth downs are going to be huge here. Nobody scored more points in the NFL this year on drives that included a fourth down play than Washington. And if that can keep this defense on the field a little more, and if this defense is not at the form it was before, and if they are a little bit banged up, and if the crowd gets a little bit antsy and cranky because Cliff's early script is on point, then I can see a scenario where Washington wins this game. So that's where I am.
All right. I'm going to give you just a little take here. In 1992, we beat the Redskins then, the Commanders. We beat them by 3 points in week 15 to clinch the division. We're going to the playoffs. We knock Washington out. Joe Gibbs is the coach. And I've always said since 1992 that when the Commanders and Eagles played, it's a 3-point game. The last time they played, it was 36-33. Like, to me, this is going to be a field goal game. Like, it just feels like that to me. Now, the field goal kicker with the Eagles right now, like, he's not kicking the ball. He's not kicking 50-yard field goals. They're not putting him out there. He's awful. He's missing extra points.
They're going like this. It's like a turbulent airplane. It's all.
You don't know what the world. You have no idea where the ball's going. Like, you can't trust that guy. So to your point, I feel like this is literally 4-down football. Like, both teams. I feel like Sirianni's going to play it like this. You know, if it's 4-1, they're going tush push. You know, if it's 4-1, you know Jayden is going to put the ball in his hands. Like, it's going to be 4-down football throughout, which means both teams, if they possess the ball like that, it might be a 7 or 8 possession game, and you might not have many opportunities to get the ball.
That's a great point, Baldy. We can't wait. 3:00. That's the early game, and we're going to talk about the AFC Championship game coming up here. Carl Dukes, Jason Canfora, Brian Baldinger. Guys, check out Baldy's breakdowns. Follow Jason. Read him in the Washington Post. Follow us on all social media platforms and stay up on everything that's going on. All right, let's talk about the AFC game. Kansas City, 2-point favorite, 1.5. Again, 47.5 over under. We know what the Chiefs are chasing, right? It's history to get to a chance to win a three-peat. But Buffalo guys are scoring 30 a game. And I'm looking at James Cook, and I want to start here. And I'm saying, look, Baldy, Jason, the oldest, thing in the book in football, right, is keep the other team's best player off the field. Limit possessions for Patrick Mahomes, and I don't have to worry about Patrick Mahomes beating me. With the activation, as Jason likes to say, of Josh Allen's legs and James Cook, guys, don't they come into this game and try to run the ball? Now, I know, I get it. It's the Chiefs defense. I understand all that. But, to me, Isn't that a way to limit what might happen in this game with Mahomes with the way Josh is playing right now? I want to start there with Cook. He's got, 16 touchdowns? He's averaging 5 yards a pop.
Well, the Bills' offensive line, those 5 guys up front have played great. They played great against Baltimore. Baltimore second league in sacks. I mean, they took that defensive line out of the game. You didn't hear any of their names being mentioned in that game. Owe, Matabike, like they were in Van Noy. You didn't hear them. Like they did a great job. Both sides, protection and run. But the thing that's interesting about the Bills, and while James Cook has run for all those touchdowns, and I think they've run for like 36 touchdowns as a team, most of the league. They use all 3 backs. Ty Johnson is their third down back. The rookie Ray Davis has a role. They really utilize all 3 backs, and they're all different. So, and then you have to factor in Josh Allen and his running. So, yes, I mean, Josh Allen is 0-3 in the playoffs against the Chiefs. They changed the overtime rule because of this matchup 3 years ago where Josh Allen was sitting there on the bench, never got a chance. Like this is a golden opportunity. He has not thrown an interception in 4 straight games. They're not turning the ball over at all right now, yet they're still aggressive. So, and they do go for it on 4th downs. So they've got everything going for them. This is their best shot to go into Kansas City and to win the game that they've had. And the thing that they did defensively in the game they won back in Week 11, 30-21, is they spied Mahomes. And it's interesting because not everybody can spy effectively. They used Dorian Williams and Terrell Bernard to do it. But and they got Mahomes to throw 2 interceptions in the game. But Mahomes did not have one run in the game. Not one. When he looked to run, the spy caught him. And so it worked. It worked in one game. Can it work in another? Because, his runs kill these teams. It killed Houston last week. His ability to scramble for first downs and touchdowns. Can they limit his effectiveness running it by using and deploying some level of spy?
I wonder about that approach, Baldy, for this one, because Travis Kelce, after a double bye, all of a sudden looks like Travis Kelce again, right? This isn't Week 12 Travis Kelce hobbled and bobbled where they're kind of leaning on Noah Gray. They've got the element of Hollywood, which whether he holds on to the ball or not, I don't know, but you got to respect his ability to latch onto it. You've got D-Hop fully versed in this thing now, right? You've got Xavier Worthy in a different part in his evolution.
No question.
And I have serious concerns about the Bills' safety situation right now. When Lamar wanted something in the middle of the field, even without Zay Flowers, it was there. And Raps beat up. And DeMar Hamlin is a try-hard guy. But, man, if he's in coverage against Patrick Mahomes and this array of talent, like, am I crazy to think about that spine? And if you get the ball over Milano's head in the middle of the field, I just think he might be able to split these safeties. And you've got to respect the speed on the outside. Like, could that be a significant factor in this game?
Yes. Yeah, I mean, look, Mahomes has, like I said this thing, like we've said on this podcast, I've said on this podcast, honestly, the Chiefs look at the regular season, they look bored for much of the regular season to me. Denver could beat them on a field goal at the end. Like, I don't know. Spags came alive last week. They got the sacks, the quarterback hits. Like, they just know how to turn the dial up. They know, and they could play this game in a parking lot. Like it helps here at Arrowhead, but if it was in Buffalo, I don't think it would make a difference. They handle atmosphere. I just feel like you can't go against Mahomes, Andy Reid, and Spags. You just can't go. Like, I've made the mistake before. You look stupid. Like, they know, and I feel like even when they kind of just, turn the faucet on and said, let's three-peat last year when they won their second. Like, I really feel like they are motivated by this thing. Totally. They got a chance to write history. And they've got players that are going to have, that they're writing history individually right now. But they have a chance. Andy, Mahomes, Kelce, D-Hop, all these guys have a chance to really write history. I think it's important to them. I think it's a real motivator for them.
Yeah, and you bring up D-Hop, Hollywood Brown, Juju. The crazy thing is, guys, and we know it's a week-to-week league, 3 targets, no catches last week versus Houston for all 3 of those guys, right?
Well, they stayed away from the corners and said we're going to attack the safeties.
Correct.
We don't need the wide receivers. We got all these guys in the middle of the field. We're going to attack the safety.
That's what Justin Herbert did the week before, and he threw 4.
Right.
The Lassiter and Stingley.
Yeah. But I'm looking at that saying now I think he's going to fancy some of these matchups on the outside, as well as this team is compromised potentially at safety and their ability to have somebody in center field who can really cover the way you're going to have to cover against Mahomes, especially at Arrowhead when everything's stacked against you. Like that to me is significant.
I pretended this week like I was an intern working for Andy Reid. And I took my note cards out and I just started scripting all of the pressures that Spags used last week or week 11 against Buffalo. And I ran out of space. Just like they dropped Chris Jones into the hook curl, the best interior pass rusher in this league. They dropped him into the hook curl so Trent McDuffie could come free. Like the ideas that he has, it's like Bill Walsh scripting new plays. All the guys that worked for Bill Walsh over the years, he'd come in with 10 new plays every Monday, and 5 of them would make the game plan by Sunday. And I feel like Spags is the same way. He's just scripting these pressures, and he's running it through Nick Bolton, and he's running it through Chris Jones, and he's running it through Trent McDuffie, and he's like, and he says to these guys, what do you think? Can you hold up if they do this to you right now? If they run this streak, and we're coming off the edge, can we? And like they're sitting in these meetings and they're coming up with things that you've never seen before. Somehow the mind, it just keeps clicking. Like I can't wait to see that part of this game.
Yeah, the Spags Joe Brady matchup, just from a schematic standpoint, how they counter each other, the adjustments is going to be great.
Well, let me jump in real quick on that. Baldy,
what's that?
Joe Brady, are you stunned that he was as conservative as he was? I mean, they're at home. Like to get to Carl's original point about running the ball. If all they want to do is run the ball between the 20s, I think Spags will take that all day. Like I'll take that and I'll win enough in the red zone. I'll win third down on the red zone enough. Like I was really kind of like, I don't know. Joe Brady left me really kind of looking like a guy who I thought was coaching a little scared last week.
Well, I don't think he was coaching scared. I mean, he got the turnover early, got the interception on the miscommunication with Lamar and Rashad. He got the turnover. I thought that they were running the ball well, so he stayed with it. Their strength was pass rush all year long. It nullified all of that. Like I thought he played point counterpoint pretty good with the Ravens in that game.
I want to ask you about Joe Thuney. He gave up 2 sacks last week. They've had issues at guard. Is that an area that can be exploited by the Bills this weekend?
Sure. I mean, right now, Rousseau's playing great football. I said weeks ago, watch out for Von Miller. Just watch out for him. This is his kind of, like, the regular season, all right, fine. Just like I saw him in the offseason, he's in shape, he's healthy, he's in a good place. You put Epinesa, you put Rousseau, you put Vaughn out there in various roles. Like, yes, it could be a problem. I think, if Vaughn's on the field, Rousseau can go to the other side. Thuney is a guard. He's held up well against good players, but maybe it caught up to him a little bit last week against a good player.
That's a hell of a unit for the Texans too, though. Like that's a hell of a unit. Like
they get after it.
The Bills, if the Bills can replicate that, then they can win this game. But if they don't, I don't think they are.
Well, that's the thing, Jace. That's why I'm saying, like, to me, you've got to highlight some of these matchups on the line, the offensive line for the Chiefs and the Bills. You're right. I think if they can do what the Texans did, they'll give themselves a really good shot. I just want to bring up Coleman, Amari Cooper. You mentioned all these guys for the Chiefs, right? And Patrick doesn't care who he's throwing it to. Like, I'm going to throw it to you. You can just catch the damn ball and make a play. There's no legitimate number one, right? Shakir, I think, has probably turned into that for the Bills, but like there's no legitimate number one. So here's my question. When it's Mahomes, it's always Kelsey is his bailout, right? I know that. Who's Josh Allen's bailout? Who is this guy when he needs a play and he's like, we got to have it? That is something I'm looking at too going into this weekend. And by the way, guys, the Chiefs, when you look at their defense, they have not allowed, and I was just looking at this is crazy. They've not given up more than 20 points. You're going back, 6, 7, 8 weeks? Something of that nature? Where they're not giving up more than 20 points to their opponents.
Got 10, Cleveland got 7, Houston got 12 before the safety.
So who's your bailout if you're Josh? Where are you going?
The bailout, honestly, Carl, the bailout is Josh and his ability to scramble and see the field and make good decisions. That's the bailout. That's what it is. He'll find Kincaid, he'll find Knox. He's the same way. He doesn't care. If Ty Johnson match up against linebackers, watch it. It's going to happen. His bailout is his ability to extend and just his physical gifts.
Yeah, well, he's big, strong. He showed it last week. I thought it was interesting. And Jason and I talked about this on Tuesday. It's in the Huddle, guys. Subscribe, like us, tell your friends. We're across all platforms, and you can check out this podcast. We were talking about how they got in the red zone, and they just gave it to Josh last week. I'm expecting the same thing to happen this week. There was no trickery, no BS. We're just gonna, hike the ball and go to Josh. Fellas, what do you think about this number, Jason? You like the Chiefs to cover the 2?
I like Chiefs money line. I just play the Chiefs money line. Patrick Mahomes is 16-3 in the playoffs. That's good enough for me.
Fair enough. Anything on the over under? You guys think it goes under?
I do, but I think you might get more value if you wait. Patrick Mahomes 14-5 to the under at home playoffs regular season since the start of last year.
I feel like this could be the last game was 30-21. It was 51 points. I feel like, that's week 11. It doesn't really matter. But I feel like this is going to be the over. I think both quarterbacks are going to engineer drives and finish drives.